You're listening to Uncoupled and Unfiltered, the show for people smart enough to get out of the wrong relationship and bold enough to do it without losing their damn minds. Hosted by Ksenia Mensch, a divorce strategist and straight-talking badass, this podcast is your no-fluff, no-shame, take-control guide to surviving litigated divorce with clarity, guts, and zero regrets. Let's get into it. Here's Ksenia.
You're listening to Uncoupled and Unfiltered. Today, we're diving into a topic that doesn't often get the attention it deserves in divorce conversations, and that's immigration. Divorce is already complicated, but what if one partner is an immigrant? Then legal landscape becomes even more complex. That's why I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Evelyn Moon with Evelyn Moon Law PC, an experienced immigration attorney who has helped countless individuals and families navigate the intersection of immigration law and family law. From visa status and green cards to custody and deportation risks, she brings a wealth of knowledge to help us better understand what happens when a relationship ends, but immigration status is still in limbo. Evelyn, thank you so much for joining us. So thrilled to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So exciting.
I am really excited about this topic because I went through immigration based on my marriage. So I walked this walk, but it was almost like 20 years ago. I know situation has changed, but I want to make sure that people understand what they can do if marriage is not working out. And it comes from an expert who is experienced and knows what they're doing. So really excited to talk about it. One, can you share about your background? How you became an immigration attorney, what drives you to be in that area of law, and just what makes you happy when you are doing it?
Yes. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to speak on your podcast. It's my honor.
Thank you.
I first came to the States through my dad. My father was an executive of the global company in South Korea, in Seoul, Korea. So he was transferred over to the U.S. subsidiary office. It's called L1 visa. So there's an executive visa only for expats, who are transferred from the overseas headquarters to the U.S. Subsidiary branch, or even, it can be a parent. The U.S. company can be a parent. So I was his derivative dependent child. So that's how I got a U.S. visa, and then ultimately transitioned to become a green card holder, right? But immigration has been very fascinating, just naturally because I was an immigrant myself, right? And I love the fact that I get to, work with humans, right? And also combine this technical legal knowledge and, with human stories, right? So families, marriages, careers, and dreams, their American dreams, right? So helping someone secure their status or navigate a difficult process feels very incredibly rewarding. So that's how I chose immigration law.
Got it. So over the last few years, there were a lot of immigration conversations on the political arena. What trends are you seeing in your business with people that you're helping? Is it easier to help? Is it more challenging? Just overall experience in this area of law right now for you.
So overall, in general, so I primarily practice business immigration and family immigration. I don't really handle deportation, asylum, or removal proceeding. That's another whole specialty area. So I just refer those clients to my other colleagues or friends who specialize in that area. But even within business and family immigration, I see more complicated issues, and then the bars are higher, right? Most of the cases are subject to higher scrutiny, right? And then constant policy changes and updates that we have to keep track of and make sure that, we apply those updated policies to our cases. So I always have to, watch out for those updates. But within the family immigration, because we're going to be talking about divorce and what happens to the family immigration cases, one good news is that cases are much more streamlined and being processed much faster. We actually anticipated that the cases will be slower, like the processing will be slower, right? But surprisingly, it's been processed very fast, especially the marriage-based green card cases, when you are married to a US citizens, right, then there's a way that you can obtain green card, right? That process particularly been processed very fast. That's actually a really bright and good news. But with the recent policy updates now, even if you enter the US lawfully, right? And then for some unexpected circumstances and reasons, personal reasons, you end up overstaying, right? So lose your status and end up overstaying. And then married a US citizen, before those cases are not really subject to, higher scrutiny, or, we didn't really worry about getting the NTA, notice to appear. That's the first initial step of the removal process, right? It is only those who entered illegally, right, who jump across the border and then overstay. Then there's a way that you have to go through the, process, including waiver, and, you also, may receive NTA. More likely, there's a more likelihood of, getting the NTA. But with the recent updated policy that was, recently released by USCIS on August 1st, now even those who lawfully enter the US, then overstay, can receive an NTA. I mean, it has been the rule, like that's been the case, but it wasn't really practiced in reality
Okay.
with those who
Yes.
lawfully entered. But now we really have to keep in mind that even those clients can receive an NTA. And if that happens, then those clients have to present their case in front of the immigration judge in immigration court instead of going through the legal, like normal process with field office, USCIS field office. So
So it
that has
sounds
been
like it just the policies are more enforced. The just more strict enforcement. That's what it
Yep,
is.
more strict enforcement. Yes.
What is the typical timeline for marriage? So I know when you're obtaining citizenship, based on this, the reason or grounds for citizenship, it's different timelines. And you just mentioned that based on marriage, they are processed very quickly. So when I was going through that, I was able to get it within 5 years of applying. What is it now? Like the average timeline to obtain citizenship?
So from being a foreign national, right, and
Yes.
marrying a US citizen, then it takes about 1 year. It typically takes about 1 year to obtain the final green card, the plastic green card in
Yeah.
hand, right? But that process has been very quick. So surprisingly, my clients already received the interview notice within about 3 months. So we used to, even before they get the EAD, the work permit, which is very surprising, right? So, but typically, usually it takes about 1 year to obtain the final green card. When you're not married for 2 years, then you're only going to get 2-year conditional green card, right? When you're newly married and then apply for the green card application, the petition and application, then you'll only get 2-year conditional green card, right? And then you have to remove the condition, right? Within 90 days before the expiration of the 2-year green card, right?
Yep.
And then, then you can get the permanent green card, right? But you can still apply for your citizenship within 3 years, right? After you become a 2-year conditional green card holder.
Got it.
So, in from start to finish, yes, you're right. It takes about 5 years to obtain a citizenship, final naturalized citizenship, from the point of, being a conditional green card holder.
What is the difference so between conditional and permanent green card?
So conditional green card holder can enjoy all the benefits that permanent green card holders can enjoy, but it's just that it is just a condition, and that condition has to be removed until you become a permanent green card holder. Permanent green card is for 10 years, and then it can
Yes.
be renewed every 10 years, right? But conditional green card holder is only for 2 years. So
Yes.
while enjoying all the benefits, you have to be able to remove that condition. So
Got
basically,
it.
USCIS, the US government just wants to make sure that this marriage is genuinely truthful, bona fide marriage and not a fake or sham marriage, right? So they just give you the time period, the conditional green card, the 2-year time period to prove that this is a real bona fide marriage that was entered in good faith.
Got it. What happens? Okay, life is unpredictable. I know that again, things happen. What happens to immigration status if you separate or you start divorcing the US citizen before being naturalized. So when you have a permanent green card, I don't think it affects your status at all. But what if you are conditional?
So when you're a conditional green card holder, then you're still, subject to the requirement where you have to remove the condition, right?
Yes.
One major condition to remove the condition is to be able to prove that you're lawfully stayed married together,
Yes.
right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have to jointly file that removal of condition. It's called 751. You have
Mm-hmm.
to file that removal of a condition application together jointly. So it's called joint filing of 751, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're separated or divorced, then you're not able to file it jointly, right? In some situations, the U.S. citizen sponsor, the petitioner, agrees to file it jointly, even though you still have to disclose to the USCIS that you're separated. But there's a way that you can waive that joint filing requirement. If
Mm-hmm.
you're divorced, then you have to have the final divorce decree, the final resolution of the divorce,
Mm-hmm.
right? In order to remove the condition by yourself without that joint filing requirement. If you're separated and still, or divorce is ongoing, then you can still file because you have to file within 90 days before the expiration of the
Yes.
2-year conditional green card. So you still have to file something. You still have to let the USCIS know what's going on, but they're going to issue something called request for more evidence, RFE,
Mm-hmm.
to request for the final divorce decree. So basically, you won't be able to completely remove your condition and become a permanent green card holder until your divorce is finalized. So if you're
Okay.
separated, it is a good idea to expedite the process of divorce so that you have the final divorce decree to
Mm-hmm.
be able to obtain the permanent green card. So there's a way that you can remove the condition by yourself.
But isn't the purpose of conditional that you're still married? So if you're no longer married, they still can you SCIS can still grant you the permanent green card if you're divorced
Yes.
based on
So
marriage?
So what the essence of the requirement that we have to prove, demonstrate to the government is that the marriage was initially entered in good faith.
Got it.
USCIS understand that circumstances can change. For example, if you're the victim of domestic violence, US
Mm-hmm.
government do not expect, the victims of domestic violence to stay married only because they want to remove condition and become a permanent resident, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of this unexpected circumstances, and also there can be a difference in personality, or I don't know, there's so many reasons why people end up getting divorced, right?
Yes.
Personal, either physical abuse, mental abuse, like any kind of reasons, right? As long as
Mm-hmm.
you can prove that that initial marriage was entered in good faith, right?
Okay.
Then you're still able to remove that condition with the waiver of the joint filing requirement.
Okay.
But depending on the circumstances, there may be a situation where it can be a little bit more challenging to prove that the marriage was entered in good faith. You know what I mean?
Got it. That's why it's very important to engage an experienced attorney who can help you navigate and understand all the logistics of the filings and the details you need to pay attention to. Can you
Mhm.
still get a green card? Let's say before getting the conditional green card, you
Mhm.
just applied for change of status, you're waiting for that, and you got separated or in the process of divorce. Can you still get granted the conditional green card?
So if you're in the process of getting divorced or separated before even filing the, green card, it can be very difficult because, you have to be able to prove that the marriage was
Mm-hmm.
entered in good faith. I-130 petition itself is based
Yes.
on marriage. So if there's no marriage, there's no I-130. So if that's the case, and if you happen to be a victim, let's say victim of domestic violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then and if you're still married, right, before filing the I-130 petition, then there's a way that you can apply for something called VAWA. So VAWA is for those who are married to a US citizen and suffering from domestic violence. So it's a
Okay.
completely separate route, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you're not a victim of domestic violence, and if you're just divorced, I mean, not divorced, but like, not even not married, right? Then there's no
Mm-hmm.
case. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So it might be, yeah, it'll be challenging to apply for the marriage-based green card if you're already divorced before even filing it.
Are they able to change the type of filing? So let's say, okay, the marriage didn't work out, whether it's domestic violence or whatever the case is. I decided I build my life here and I just want to stay. Is there a way to change to a different type of visa or a different type of application?
Yeah, of course, of course. So if you're, let's say here in student visa, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
met this guy and fell in love, and then you got married, right? And then, but then before you file that marriage-based petition, things didn't work out and you decide to divorce, right? Then there's no
Mm-hmm.
marriage-based green card application. That is not even an option because there's no marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But depending on their personal circumstances, she or he can look for other ways to obtain another visa, like from student to work visa, and then get a sponsorship through the company. So it really depends on the personal situation and circumstances and that person's eligibility, like
Mm-hmm.
qualifications. So depending on the situation, yes, the person can either change their status from one non-immigrant visa status to another non-immigrant visa status before
Mm-hmm.
even going to the green card option. Or if there are available, green card options, then they can jump from being a student visa or other visa category to a green card. So, but the person has to be qualified for a certain, green card category or visa
Mm-hmm.
category.
How
And if
frequently
you're
do
the
you
victim of domestic violence, go
how
ahead.
frequently do you see that people have to leave the states and reapply using a different reasoning to re-enter? Do you see that
So
often?
I mean, all the time.
Oh.
So, they come here as a student visa, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then they try for their work visa. There's many different ways to obtain work visa, but work permit, like work authorization. But one of the most popular visa option is called H-1B. But H-1B is subject to lottery because there's so many people who want to apply for H-1B work visa, but there's only limited number. So if you're not selected in the lottery, right, then you explore other visa options. But if nothing works, right, like if
Mm-hmm.
there's no other way that you can obtain other visa categories, then either you go back to a student visa status by enrolling in different school or different level of, school program like master's degree
Okay.
or PhD degree program, or, some people just leave and then wait until they find another options and re-enter. So it really depends on the person's situation, but it
Got
happens
it.
a lot.
Okay. Because I know you have like when it comes to immigration, I remember when I was going through that, I did not want to miss a single timeline. When I need to appear somewhere for an interview, I'm there. When I need biometrics, I remember
Yep.
I had a newborn son. He was like 2 weeks old. I'm like, I'm not
Oh
missing
my
it.
God.
So
Yeah. Oh
it's very
no.
nerve wracking because you know that if you
Yes.
miss something, you have to leave or you're gonna mess up the entire timeline and your process. Like it's almost like you get a black mark on on your
Yeah.
application, which is not fine to fix
Yeah.
it or correct it. What about you? You mentioned multiple times about abuse spouses. So
Hmm.
you mentioned there is what type is BAWA? What like I just
VAWA.
want yeah, I just want if people listening and they find themselves in that situation that they know they have options. Can you
So
talk more a
VAWA
little bit
stands.
about that?
hmm So VAWA stands for Violence Against Women's Act, but it also applies for male victims too, not just for woman victim, but male victim. But it's named after Violence Against Women's Act, so it's called VAWA. So
BAWA, okay.
if you're married to a U.S. citizen, right, and happen to be a victim of domestic violence, then your spouse threatens you to deport you, right? Like if you don't listen
Mm-hmm.
to me or because of the status issue, right? Then you
Mm-hmm.
can apply for VAWA and there's a way that you can obtain green card. VAWA is for green card. So
Got it.
it is only available for those who are married to a U.S. citizen, right? But if you're not
Mm-hmm.
married to a U.S. citizen and happen to be a victim of like abuse or violence, then there's a way that you can apply for U visa. It's not a green card, unfortunately, and it takes a lot of time. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of documentation required for U visa. Same for VAWA too, but U visa in particular takes a lot of time and way more documentation requirements. But there's a way that you can obtain U visa status as well. But for those who are married to a U.S. citizen, VAWA is an option if you can prove the domestic violence.
What that was my next question. What kind of evidence is USCIS looking for?
So police report, right? Any kind of restraining order that you file against your spouse, abusive spouse,
Mm-hmm.
and also like pictures and photos of your, abuse. You
Mm-hmm.
can, if you can prove it, like bruises and stuff, and your declaration, third-party declarations, it's more of you can build your case, right? There's so many other optional documents or proof that you can gather together as an evidence even if you don't have actual court documentations to prove, right, such as
Mm-hmm.
restraining order granted, you can still submit your case with other secondary evidence. It is not like mandatory, but it always really helps if you have court documentations like restraining
Mm-hmm.
order, right, or police report.
Okay. What about, are there any protections against retaliations, of the spouse? The spouse, if there is an abusive spouse, and I will use he because in majority of cases it's a man who is abusing a woman. The men
Mhm.
get abused by women as well, but I'll just go traditional route. He's going to be pissed and he's going to threaten deportation or I do not
Mhm.
know, just threaten them with taking kids away, whatever the issue is in that specific situation. Is there a way to protect that spouse, or should they be afraid of deportation? Are those threats even real?
So whenever there's such kind of threat, like, oh, I'm gonna deport you, or if you don't listen to me, I'm gonna immediately report to the government. Government must investigate first before they take any actions. It's not like they're gonna listen to this one person's verbal, claim or declaration, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in order for that spouse, the petitioner or the sponsoring husband, or he doesn't even have to be the sponsoring husband, like the U.S. citizen spouse to claim that, U.S.
Mm-hmm.
government has to make an investigation. So it's not an immediate deportation. So even if the husband or the spouse makes a claim and reports that to USCIS, the person should immediately contact immigration lawyer and start the VAWA process or other
Mm-hmm.
option, immediately, right, on a separate matter. And
Mm-hmm.
even if the person receives NTA, which is the start of the
Notice to
deportation
appear.
process,
Mm-hmm.
there's no, yeah, notice of appear. There's still so many hearings and procedures that you have to go through before you're finally deported, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's when you also present your case. So it's not like, okay, you're going to be deported right away based on single person statement. No,
Mm-hmm.
government's not going to do that and they cannot do that.
Okay. What if the kids are involved? So let's say it's a marriage, the kids are citizens of the states and mom, let's call
Mhm.
her mom or the other parent is not
Mhm.
and still not naturalized, no green card yet. Divorce happens. How does the court handle those cases when kids are involved?
So when kids are involved, depending on the situation, so if I-130 is already, approved and the person is in conditional green card, right,
Mm-hmm.
status, then it actually helps because that those couple already have kids. It actually
Mm-hmm.
helps the case to prove that the marriage was entered in good faith. So the
Mm-hmm.
main element is to prove that the marriage was entered in good faith in the first
Mm-hmm.
place, right? That's the
Okay.
main criteria. And if you're divorced in the middle of being in the conditional green card status, you can still remove that condition, right? And if you're
Mm-hmm.
married with kids, then it's even a better evidence to prove that the marriage was
Yes.
entered in good faith and things just didn't work out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're not, if your I-130 petition hasn't even been submitted, but you're married to a U.S. citizen and the abuse happened, right? And the kids are involved, then you can apply for VAWA, right? And it is a
Okay.
separate matter. It's a more of a family law matter, but there's a way that you can file restraining order against the
Mm-hmm.
abuser, right? To protect
Yes.
you as well as your kids, right?
Yes.
In terms of child custody and stuff like that, you can consult family attorney, but in terms of immigration, you're not going to be deported right away, especially when kids are involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a step-by-step process that you have to go through to be finally deported, right? And immigration judge will listen and see the cases presented by both parties, right? So it's not like, okay, it's going to happen overnight and you're going to be deported
Mm-hmm.
just because this one US citizen spouse made this statement. No. So it is really
Mm-hmm.
important that you always keep all the evidence to show that the marriage was entered in good faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the reasons why, divorce is happening, right? Or abuse happened, so that
Mm-hmm.
you can always keep record of the abuse, good faith marriage documentations, so that you can present your case, whether
Mm-hmm.
to USCIS or US immigration judge.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the fake marriages because those, I mean, I know they happen. I know
Mm.
USCIS on high alert, like the movie Proposal, how it all started. It was really funny. I remember when I was going through that, and we actually had the first interview. And what was interesting during our experience, a woman came in
Mhm.
and she was just kind of the immigration attorney, not an attorney, sorry, who was whoever was interviewing us, and she was kind of abrupt and very rough, and she was almost like trying to crack the relationship. And so she threw
Mhm.
something at us, which felt very out of left field. I was terrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sent back to Russia. Like, I won't be able to stay there here. She leaves the room. And what I didn't realize, there is a camera. There was a camera or a microphone, and they were looking at us interacting, whether it was us trying to align the story together or whether it was,
Mhm.
in our case, it was my ex-spouse was comforting me and being like, no, 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 it's going to be okay. We're going to figure it out. And when she came back, her demeanor changed completely. She was like, she was joking with us. She was the kindest woman after that. But I was wondering if that was almost like a tactic they use to
Mhm.
spot fake marriages. How do you handle? Do you question your clients? How do you handle when USCIS is questioning your client whether it's a legitimate marriage?
So that interview process used to be waived during Biden administration, which was really nice because we didn't even have to go to interview during Biden administration. Most of the interviews were waived, except for very unusual circumstances. But now, of course, under current administration, interviews are mandatory, right? And now we
Mm-hmm.
get interview notices, but it's getting very strict and very, very stringent. So when USCIS officers smell something fishy, something skeptical or suspicious, then they can put the couple in two separate rooms and start asking questions and see if those answers are consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that usually happens only if they smell something fishy, something strange.
Mm-hmm.
But these days, that can happen right away, even from the beginning of the interview. So
Wow.
even if you don't say, and you haven't even said anything, they may put you in the two separate rooms. So now what I do is I make sure to prepare my clients for that kind of interview. Of course, nothing can be rehearsed, or you can't come up with the fake stories, right? But
Mm-hmm.
just so that my clients know what to expect, right? What kind of
Yes.
questions can be asked, right? So, they may ask some very random questions about, daily lives, right? What did you eat last night? Or, what kind of transportations did you utilize this morning when you come to the USCIS field office, right? These kind of
Mm-hmm.
questions cannot be rehearsed, right? And cannot be
Yes.
practiced because there are fake marriages that exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a rumor where this one facility who created like fake weddings all over the place and within their facility, and then they had multiple different fake weddings for those couple so that they can
Mm-hmm.
help prepare their marriage-based green card cases. I think it was back in 90s or something, and they of course got investigated by the by the ICE agents, and they got
Mm-hmm.
busted and they had to close down their business and they got penalized. But it happens, right? So it is
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
USCIS officers' duty to make sure that, they ask all the right questions to confirm that this is a real and genuine marriage that was entered in good faith. So it's all about whether a couple can answer the questions consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And if answers are different, like, oh, have you ever traveled, in the past 2 weeks, and which country did you travel? If the answers are different, then of course USCIS officer would question whether the marriage was entered in good faith. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So it is something that they can do.
Yes. Have you ever had people who try to apply any of your clients based on fake marriage, not entered in good faith?
It rarely happens, but one time, it wasn't my client, but the couple was represented by another attorney, another immigration lawyer, and
Mm-hmm.
they got a very complicated request for more evidence, like RFE. It was very complicated RFE because they already smelled something fishy and about the marriage itself. So they were asking for all kinds of evidentiary documents to prove the
Mm-hmm.
bona fide the good faith marriage. And I could smell something that's not right just from, having conversation with the potential client and reading the RFE. I just did not have good feeling. There's a
Mm-hmm.
huge age gap, and it was just not something that I was able to represent them like zealously.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put your client's best interest of your client, right? But I knew that I couldn't do that, so I had to turn it down. I rarely turn down the case, but there was one case that I had to turn down because I was able to feel it like that it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the right marriage, like it wasn't the real
Mm-hmm.
marriage, I mean.
Got it. Um,
Yeah.
does divorce affect the timeline of naturalization, generally speaking?
I mean, when it comes to natural, there are two parts, right? One is to be a permanent resident, right? The 10-year
Yes.
green card.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is to become a permanent, I mean, the citizen. Citizen is a
Yes.
US, you become a naturalized citizen. So if you get divorced, right, and in the process, um, while you're a conditional green card, and then you're able to waive the joint filing requirement and become a permanent resident, then instead of 3 years, you have to wait 5 years
Okay,
from the
got it.
date that you became a conditional resident. So instead of 5 years, it can take up to 7 years plus to become a
Mm-hmm.
citizen, right? So that 3 year is a special benefit for the
Mm-hmm.
married, a person who's married to a US citizen. They have a shorter timeline, right? Instead of 5 years, 5 years is a usual wait time to
Mm-hmm.
become a naturalized citizen. But if you get divorced and go through that process, then you have to wait for 5 years, the normal timeline to become a US citizen.
Got it. What documents are of utmost importance that people should be aware to keep? Like, and how long you need to keep those documents for?
So when you apply for the marriage-based green card, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the most important documentations that we prepare in the marriage-based green card petition is bona fide, the joint documentations, right? So in addition
Mm-hmm.
to marriage license and certificate, that's no-brainer, right? That's a mandatory. And also joint residency documents, lease agreement or title of the house showing both of their names, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prove that they're living together. That's another second important documentations after marriage license, right? And then all other types of joint documentations are optional, but I try to include as much joint documentations as possible, such as insurance, health insurance, life insurance, designated each other as a beneficiary, right? A car
Mm-hmm.
insurance, even gym membership showing both of their names, utility bills, um, invitations cards that they receive from their families showing both of their names to the same address, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, anything. And then I even include affidavits that they can obtain from their third-party families and friends, confirming that, it's a bona fide
Mm-hmm.
good faith marriage, right? We have a sample template that we share with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just think of all these other optional documentation to show that this is a real bona fide, good faith
Mm-hmm.
marriage.
And when you're, whether every person is different, some people are just happy to be permanent green card holders without going through naturalization. Some people want to be citizens. When you get to that status,
Mhm.
are there any documents that you have to keep after that? Let's say, like, okay, you got naturalized. Do you have to keep your initial
Mhm.
I-130 application, or other documents that you used to apply, or can you just discard them at some point?
I mean, you don't really need to keep those documentations. There's no mandatory requirement, but I would at least keep scanned copy of whatever that you can keep, like especially, I don't know, I-130 approval, your conditional green card, copy of your conditional green card and permanent green card, just so in case there's any issues, right? If there's any kind of false claim made against you, then about the marriage, the real marriage, even if you become a citizen, it is not like done deal and there's no way to go back and, you're just citizen for the rest of your life. There's a process called denaturalization, unfortunately. So if your citizenship has been obtained through fraudulent, presentation of documentations or any kind of fraud involved, then your naturalization can be your citizenship can be denaturalized, right? So
Got it.
just in case, I would just keep everything so that at least scan copy. If you don't want to carry all those paper copies, I would at least keep the scan copy so that in case something happens, right, unexpected happens, then you can always present your case, right? If you lose everything, oh, I moved and then I forgot and I lost that USB drive or I lost my laptop. If that happens, then there's a way that you can actually retrieve your file by submitting something called FOIA. So you're requesting government to, release your record, whatever the record that they have, but you don't want to get there, right? Like it's time consuming and you have to submit another application, right, to submit a FOIA request. So I think it's always good to keep your record in your drive if available, like even the cloud. You don't have to keep it in your hard drive, right?
Yeah. When is a good time to talk to you? Like, when should people consider reaching out to you?
So if they're married or about to get married, and if one spouse is a foreign national, then I think it's good time to already start talking to an immigration lawyer as to how to prepare those marriage-based petition, right? And let's say you're already a conditional green card holder and thinking about getting divorced, then I think that, or even separated, that's the time when you should talk to an immigration lawyer. You shouldn't wait until you're actually separated or, getting in the process of divorce, because family lawyer won't have any detailed knowledge of immigration process. So it is really important that you speak to both professionals, family attorney, as well as immigration lawyer. If you're the foreign national who obtained the green card status, then it is really important to talk to both professionals at the same time.
Okay. And what is the best way to contact you? So I'll put the information from your website, how to reach you. Is there, how quickly can people expect a response when they email you? Is it email? Is it phone?
Yeah, email will be the best way. So Evelyn M, my first name and last initial, Evelyn M at evelynmoon.com would be the best way to reach me, because I don't really check my DM on Instagram. A lot of people try to DM me, but I always tell them, please send me an email, right? Because Instagram is just social media and it is not a formal way of, communication. So best method of communication is email.
Okay.
Or
Well,
they
I'm
can call
gonna.
my main office.
That's perfect too. So I will include all the information about your, your website and how to contact you. And I really appreciate your time being here today and sharing such a valuable information on something life-changing like immigration.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was. We need to do the next dance soon.
I
That,
know.
that will be good.
Definitely.
And thank you so much for listening to Uncoupled and Unfiltered. And until next time.
That's it for this episode of Uncoupled and Unfiltered. If you're loving the raw truth and practical takeaways, do the badass thing and rate and review the show wherever you listen. It helps more good people find their way out of the chaos. And check the show notes. Yeah, we actually put some useful stuff in there. Resources, links, tools, go grab what you need. Until next time, don't settle, don't shrink, and don't look back.